So, yes, huge portion of our population today now suffer with depression. And I myself, at one stage in my life, I would say for most of my life, up until I began my recovery from addiction. But it first was diagnosed when I was around 27, 26. I went to see a psychologist in Cape Town, in Sea Point. I'm not going to give you his name. He's probably retired by now, but a wonderful man. Unfortunately, he couldn't help me. And that was because the first day I went to see him, he asked me a few questions in order to do what they call a BIPSYCH, or a biopsychosocial assessment. And that's where the psychiatrist or psychologist or counselor gets to know you better, and you tell them things about your life, in order for them to understand you properly and so that they can help you. But one of the first questions he asked me was, do I drink too much? And now, what does too much mean? Well, the South African government or the states recommended daily of alcohol is 2 units for a man and 1 unit for a woman. 1 unit, 2 units for a man is 1 beer, 1 to 2 beers. And for a woman is about half that. A glass of wine is more than 2 units, actually. The introduction of alcohol into the nervous system immediately changes your state of mind and starts to put, it starts to suppress the nervous system and alter your mind. And that's the reason why people use alcohol, is to escape reality. And, he asked me, do you drink too much? And I said, no, I have a couple of beers, 1 or 2, which was a complete lie. When I drank to get drunk. And I don't think I ever, apart from, I think, a stage where I stopped drinking for a few months, and then I started to drink again, because I thought, well, you've proved this to yourself, Whitfield. You can stop drinking. But the reality was I started again, and it started off with 1, then 2, then 3, and then marijuana to help calm me down. And as I know now, being involved in alternative addiction treatment, marijuana suppresses anger. And you can ask anybody, any rehab in the country, about the amount of people who've checked themselves into rehab who tried to stop marijuana just for marijuana. They checked themselves into rehab because they wanted to stop for whatever reason, and they suddenly realized they couldn't. And this major anger would come out of people with depression. And we see this. We see that depression, anger, is a major cause of depression. Unresolved anger, unresolved sadness. And I was drinking way too much. He asked me if I used recreational drugs, and I said, no, I've had 1 or 2 E's, maybe the odd line of Coke. And the reality was that wasn't true either. I had arrived on his doorstep through the recommendation of my employer at the time who told me he'd gone to see him when he was 18, when he was struggling with depression. And the reason he told me to go there was because one day I just didn't go to work. I decided I just can't be bothered. I cannot get up. I'm not interested. I just want to sleep. And I phoned him and I said, listen, I'm not coming in. He said, okay, no problem. What's the problem? I said, I'm depressed. I'm feeling down. I just needed a day off. And he said, okay, so we'll see you tomorrow. I said, yeah, maybe. He says, well, just phone and let me know. Anyway, that was the last he heard of me. And about 10 days later, now I'd slept for 10 days. 10 days I slept. I lost 7 kilos. I got up to have the odd cup of coffee or drink some liquids because I was thirsty. It wasn't alcohol. It was coffee or water or tea, and go to the toilet. And then I went straight back to sleep. I just couldn't open my eyes. I wasn't interested. Eventually, he came to my house and he banged on my door non-stop because my car was parked outside. So he knew I was there. The curtains were drawn and he banged on my door until I opened it. Eventually, I opened the door and I said to him, "What?" He said, "I'm worried about you." I said, "I'm worried about me too." He said, "Listen here, you take this card, go and see this man. He helped me when I was 18 years old. And he has a little bit of money to help you get started on the treatment." And he said, "Promise me you'll go. Promise me you'll make an appointment." I said, "Okay, I promise. I'm going to do it right away and I'll go see him as soon as I can." And I went to go see this psychologist the next day. Now, that was the backstory of how I ended up on his doorstep. But shortly before that, I had been using too much cocaine, and then I discovered ecstasy. And ecstasy made me realize for the first time in my life that I was actually depressed. I didn't realize that I was suffering from depression my whole life up until I took an ecstasy pill, because it gave me something to compare compared to my present reality. And my present reality was very tormented, complete false identity, and obviously abusing substances in order to cope with my stress and with the character defects and the character flaws that I was hiding from the world that would come out after hours, when I was partying. And after taking ecstasy for, it wasn't long, it was maybe a couple of weeks. Eventually, it started with a half. And then that half became, okay, I'll have the other half now that I know how it feels. And that made me realize I was depressed for the first time. And then when I came down, I had major, major depression, because all of that dopamine that was excreted from that pill was suddenly reabsorbed by the brain, because I had way too much dopamine in such a short space of time. And the brain it says, hey, listen, you've had too much, and it tries to restore balance. And obviously going from that place to this place was a very, very big drop, and I experienced huge depression. And then I just started to eat ecstasy like Smarties, and that was the cause, the lead up to me sleeping for 10 days because I was so depressed. I think part of the reason was my dopamine was so low, because the brain had said, whoa, you just had way too much, you need to restore balance here. And I had no dopamine, so I couldn't keep my eyes open. The dopamine is used to be able to move, to be able to talk, to be able to reduce anxiety. And we can stimulate these things using just putting some tone in your voice, moving quickly, change your physiology, as Tony Robbins says, and eating healthy, eating fruit and vegetables, and getting some exercise, and getting out and going for a walk, and all these other things you'll you're going to learn about in this course that I've put together for you. So that's my backstory. And then when I started my recovery and I started working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, that really is about change. And so, it was difficult. If you're a drunken horse thief and you take away the booze, you're still a horse thief. It's about change. And depression, overcoming depression, is about change. Obviously, what I'm doing right now is not working. The way I'm living my life right now is not working. My perspective of life, my perspective of my past, my perspective of myself, my perspective of reality is defective. And I need to examine every single one of them. And that I did through the 12-step program. And it was difficult. It was difficult. Writing my life story honestly, for the first time, and confessing it to another human being, which is what I should have done, when I was seeing that poor psychologist. I saw him for 3 years. Was it 2 years? I can't remember. I think it was 3 years. I saw him once a week for 2 or 3 years. I know it was definitely 2 years. My memory is a little bit, it escapes me. It was so long ago. It was 20 years ago. So let's say it was 2 years. Once a week for 2 years, I went there to lie to the man. I just lied to him. And so he could never help me. And when I finally arrived on his doorstep one day begging for help because I was an addict, he was so shocked. And he went through his own crisis because he had to ask himself the question, as a psychologist, what was I doing for the last 2 years? There was a moral dilemma here. Taking someone's money every week or twice a week, as a therapist for years on end is unethical nowadays. If you can't get a good result within 12 sessions, you should refer that person on to somebody else. And I want to urge you, as someone who may be seeing somebody for your depression, if you've been to them for more than 12 sessions and you're not getting a result that you're happy with, you need to find somebody else or change your approach. Do the things that this course is going to suggest to you, and listen to the audio hypnosis, which is included. Do some qigong, do some yoga, do some meditation, change your diet, and you're going to learn so much more about these things in this course. I hope you enjoy it. And from me to you, from my home to yours, wherever you are, I really wish you all the best. And I care about your health and your recovery. Try some AccuDetox. Include some AccuDetox in your life. I've included a list of all the registered practitioners in South Africa, and go see them. Just have one treatment. You won't believe how different you'll feel after one treatment. And you can learn more about my own personal experience in my life story, where I tell people exactly, what kind of person I was. A lot more detail, but you can find that on YouTube, actually. Just search for My Story, Warren Whitfield. I tell you what, I'll put a link to it in this video just below if you want to go watch it. But yeah, hey, those are my 2 Yorkies. It's raining today, and I wanted to finish this course off, and they come inside when it's raining. And we have a window that's open over there. Let's have a look. There we go. There's the front door. And every time somebody walks past, they bark. So I wish you all the best. I love you. I care about you. Really try and put some effort into it, and do the little things that this course suggests, and I know you'll experience relief and benefit from it, and you can even beat it like I have. Um, I would say I haven't suffered from depression in more than 20 years. So I'm very grateful for having found my way out. But I certainly employed most of the things that you're going to learn about, if not all of them. Um, yeah, probably all of them, and that's why I've recommended all of them in this course. Obviously, I want to be honest, probably not all of them, but 99% of them. Some of the things I felt weren't beneficial for me, and so I didn't do them. But everything is in this course, that is in this course, I believe is beneficial in helping you beat depression. Bye bye now. Enjoy the course.